Mascot horror, the type of horror genre with things like friendly mascots that have an evil side and dark lore. It's usually targeted to kids, blah blah blah. If you're watching this, then you probably already know all about mascot horror. But for those of you that don't, mascot horror takes mascots like child-friendly Freddy Fazbear, Chuck E. Cheese, and then gives it dark lore, twisted. They could be killers, they could be haunted, things like that. I've seen countless videos about the trash fire state of mascot horror, how bad it is, how unoriginal it's getting, and I completely agree. Most of this stuff is garbage. Though, honestly, I don't think it's the fault of the genre, because I don't think mascot horror was supposed to be a genre at all. At this point, it's only a cash grab niche made to exploit children and their parents' wallets by proxy. But, let's just take this back to where it all began. Five Nights at Freddy's. If you don't know what Five Nights at Freddy's is, why, how, go buy all the games, watch 100 hours of commentary, watch Markiplier scream through it, kiss a Foxy body pillow, then come back here. Okay, we good? All right. I just want to say I love Five Nights at Freddy's. Regardless of personal opinions on the lore or the state of security breach, it was truly a novel idea when it came out, and I think it's legendary for its impact on gaming history. Though, to be simple, FNAF could be boiled down into three key elements: nostalgia, easy playability, and lore. FNAF took from the 90s, 2000s kids' potential nostalgia, and it was a great setting for a horror game. The gameplay mechanics were simple, yet complicating enough to be engaging throughout the rest of the game. Hidden secrets caused people to talk about it, and just like that, bada bing, bada boom, you got a $70 million franchise. Though the problem is, with a success like that, everybody wants a piece of that new, nostalgic-flavored Fazbear pizza. So that's when games like Bendy, Hello Neighbor, and Tattletale started to come out, and they were trying to recreate those factors in order to capture the same success that FNAF did, thus ushering in the mascot horror era. While many think that we're in a mascot horror dark age, I think it just shouldn't have existed as a genre in the first place. The reason why the genre is not good and imploding on itself is that the concept of FNAF was unique. Not unique for other games to follow, but its game mechanics made sense, the lore made sense, and it was all within good reason. See, what made FNAF a good game was its gameplay mechanics first and foremost. Everything else was an afterthought. You play as a security guard, you have to balance certain aspects, safety and power, to survive your job. That is all you need to know about FNAF to understand and enjoy the game. All of the bits of lore are inessential to the actual story of the game making sense. In writing, we call this A-plots and B-plots. The A-plots of the game is you, the security guard, you must survive the night. You survive the night, you beat the game. That is all. The whole lore amalgamation is hidden in the B-plot of the game, a story beat that is secondary within the main events of the game. In this case, the B-plot is the murders. While the A-plot and the B-plot interact, your experience with the A-plot comes first and foremost, so that is the only story thread that needs to be completed. By the end of the game, that story is completed. You either die or you get your paycheck and you're fired. Now, this is where I noticed other mascot horror games going wrong. In FNAF, the gameplay mechanics are exactly aligned with the A-plot of the game. Every action you do and perform within the game is to progress the story forward in a way that is natural to the environment. You are not out investigating for clues throughout the pizzeria, you just survive. You do night guard actions that allow you to survive. These actions are simple yet challenging enough to give a unique experience and challenge through each gameplay. Now, to look at other mascot horror games, let's take Poppy Playtime for example. The premise: find Poppy while uncovering a dark mystery about the factory toy company. The things you do in the game, the puzzles and other pointless tasks, are not essential in the story of the game and do not enhance the story in any meaningful way. The A-plot of the game is just explore the factory until you find what you need. This puts the lore center stage of the game, which is not bad at all. It becomes uninteresting when the game itself is not fun. While this is my personal opinion, I do not find the actual gameplay mechanics fun because it is a series of solving puzzles until reaching a destined endpoint. You could replace any of the gameplay mechanics with any other types of challenges, and the end result would be the same. See, if you were to take away the power systems of FNAF and just have it be predetermined lore with puzzles, then you'd have garbage. I mean sister location. While people can find Poppy Playtime fun without the lore, I find it a waste of time as the game is story-driven where FNAF is not. Now, what does this have to do with the mascot horror genre? Everything. The failure of the mascot horror genre is because developers have been making games in an attempt to build lore and not unique or good games. Lore and storytelling can be a wonderful, important part of the game, but the gameplay is just as, if not more important. I think a good rule of thumb to tell if a game is great with its lore and story, like FNAF, if the gameplay enhances or is necessary to the events of the story. In Poppy, yes, you need to explore for the lore, but the specific puzzle task done can be switched out with literally anything else that can be used to squeeze lore from the game. Bendy and the Ink Machine, the second most well-known mascot horror game, falls into the same trap as Poppy Playtime and many other mascot horror games. Aesthetically, the game is beautiful and unique, and having the 1920s themed stuff was a pretty novel idea too. Though, ask most people, and it's the gameplay that drags it down. The gameplay mechanics rely on fetch quests to stumble upon lore and uncover the mystery that the game sets up. This sucks because you could replace the fetch quests and game mechanics with the puzzles of Poppy Playtime and you get the same outcome. The lore is told, and that's all that there is to these games. Lore. Only focusing on lore and creating kid things with dark, twisted, boring gameplay sucks, and I hate it. You can have mascot-branded video games that do not fall into the pitfalls of mascot horror. I think a great example of this would be a game that can take normally safe and secure things and make them dark and twisted with fun gameplay. This isn't considered a mainstream mascot horror, but a really good game from Horizon Showcase 2022 is called Bonnie's Bakery, and they executed this thing very well. Bonnie's Bakery is structured into two parts, a sort of cutesy cooking mama segment, and then a horrific nightmare that is dark and disturbing. The gameplay of Bonnie's Bakery is essential to the story and lore of the game, because without the cooking segment and the escape segment, the story wouldn't exist, if not be engaging at all. I think if someone were to make Bonnie's Bakery a wide-scale mascot horror game, they'd have a successful time at making it marketable. Pastel chibi bakery girl that is murderous is easily marketable merch that could sell very well to children. Mascot horror was never meant to be so unoriginal. Gameplay is a major part of what made FNAF so memorable and successful. The lack of unique gameplay aligned with the events of the story is what stops any other mascot horror game from being great. You're probably thinking, oh, well, you just talked about the mascot horror genre. How can you say it wasn't meant to be a genre? Because it wasn't. Mascot horror isn't like shooter games or roguelike games. The specific fixation on a mascot for the game makes it no longer a game, but a story with game-like elements. Now, there is nothing wrong with that. I am a writer. I love stories. But the difference between FNAF and all other mascot horror games, as I pointed out, is that FNAF is not a blueprint for success, no matter how much any other games try to force it to be that way. Stop focusing on friendly and nostalgic mascots, make the gameplay unique, then all else will follow suit. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate the reception on the first video that I put out, and I can already tell that this is going to be a great community. But yeah, if you like what you hear, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.